Pretty soon, recordings. Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be your host on Arch Talk 101, and we have a special guest on the show with us, Justin. How you doing today?
Good, man. How's it going?
Good. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little something about yourself?
Well, I'm a jack of all trades. I've done a lot of stuff in the industry for years. I started doing video production back in 2011 as an internship, actually, for Synergy Outdoors, based out of Baton Rouge, where I'm originally from. And my career has taken me to Wisconsin, and I moved back in 2014, started my own video production company, Studio H Productions, that's still active to this day. So going on almost 10 years now. And I'm actually up here in Missouri. My wife and I moved up here in 2018 for me to work in-house directly for one of my clients, Redneck Blinds. And from here, my business still growed. I work full-time for them, but I also started getting into taxidermy and had my own web series for 7 seasons. And so been busy, been doing a lot of stuff, got to meet a lot of great people in the industry. It's a very small industry, but it's a loyal industry, and it's a great one to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, it is. That sounds kind of interesting. So do you do video production, kind of on the side or anything, or just for that one place?
Yeah, no, I run a full video production company. I've had Studio H Productions for this is going into my 10th year now. So when I went with Redneck, I worked part-time for them. I mean, full-time for them, part-time for my company, just to kind of keep it going. I didn't want to lose out on an account or anything like that. But no, full steam ahead these days with it. And my wife and I actually are getting ready to transition back to Louisiana, where we're all from. We got a 2-year-old, and we're anxious for him to be able to spend time with his great grandparents and grandparents, and just get to be able to, experience what we grew up, because just the 3 of us up here. So it's tough, for us to do that. So we'll miss our farm and everything for sure. But we're ready to start a new chapter. So, but yes, to answer your question, I do a full-blown video production. I do primarily, a lot of the times, a lot of the companies I work with in the industry, they hire my company out to do specialty animations and graphics packages for hunting shows, or I'll do full-blown commercials for a lot of the leading industry brands out there that's marketing some of their new equipment, or whatever product that they're trying to push at the time. So worked with a lot of the big brands over the years. I've filmed for a lot of different shows over the years to help produce shows that have been on Sportsman Outdoor Channel all the way to web series. So I've been around for a little while. So I'm not quite as old as some of my other buddies that I looked up to get into the industry, but we always joke about that. It's kind of neat to start seeing people are asking me, how to do things. And I remember I was in my shoes at one point in my career. So now I can chuckle with my mentors about that, because now I know the feeling that they have whenever they had someone that was nagging them about how to do something.
Yeah. So if they want to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you?
The easiest thing to do would be to, you could just send me an email. It's justin@studiohpro.net. I used to do a Facebook page, and it just never generated anything for me. So a few years ago, I actually got rid of the thing, and I just been doing stuff with word of mouth. My website has been existent, but it hasn't been active in a long time. And it sounds like it's all terrible business decisions, but honestly, it's allowed me to pick and choose who I work with and filter out, people that would be wasting my time. So I don't know what other better way to put it, but it's been a blessing to be able to have the opportunity to, be selective with clients that I work with every year.
Yeah, and for those interested, I'll put a link in the description, how to get a hold of you, an email. That way you don't have to try and remember it and write it down. I just put a link in there, and that'll show up in the podcast, and as well as on the YouTube channel, I have a description in there. So anybody that wants to do that, sounds like you got some great experience, and probably pretty much if you want something done, you know how to do it.
That's right. And I dabble a little bit in taxidermy as well. So right before this meeting, I was in the middle of getting ready to mount a shoulder mount for a buddy of mine. So I'll resume that. I had to get to a stopping point to do this, and then I'll get back and get it knocked out today. So that process and that whole job, that business will end when I move up from Missouri down to Louisiana, because right now we're not really sure, if I'm going to have a shop that I can actually keep doing stuff in initially. It might be a little while, a few years before I can get back into doing it. So, but it's funny, you do things for a hobby, and then before you know it, you're doing things for everyone else. And that's why I have to keep telling everyone I'm not a full-time taxidermist. I do it part-time at best, just whenever I want to decompress and do something fun and different. Because remember, I always tell them, remember, guys, I was doing this for me because I was thankful enough to be able to harvest, many animals throughout my career. And I always wanted to challenge the interest of doing something like that. I like working with my hands. And so I always tell them, it's like, guys, I'm not full time. So, a year at least before you'll see a shoulder mount, because I'm going to take my time. And if I don't want to look at it for a month, I'm not going to even look at it for a month. That's just how I work, so, but.
What are some of the mistakes that people make when they kill an animal and want to have it mounted?
I think the number one thing that you could do wrong would be to not take care of the proper processes of keeping up with the hide. If that's the number one thing, especially early season, it's very unforgiving. You need to not mess around with taking 1,000 pictures and wanting to go and show all your buddies before you get it field dressed and get it caped off that animal. Immediately, whenever you kill that animal early season, you're going to be dealing with heat, and it's not going to be in your favor. Time is of the essence. You got to get that cape off. That short hair will want to slip whenever you're starting to do the pickling and tanning process, if not beforehand. And then you'll lose your cape, and you'll have to be looking for a replacement cape, or have to ultimately go a different route. So that, in my opinion, is the number one thing that people will mess up on, is not properly taking the time. That number one thing here is, if you got to get a taxidermist, you can fix it. Well, if you got a bald spot, you can't really do anything about a bald spot. There's really not much you can do. You really can't. I don't know how to, can't really sugarcoat it. You're gonna mess it up. So
Yeah.
Warms, the colder it gets and the further along into the rut, they got really long hair, and you can get away with stuff a little longer because it's cooler. But again, always treat all of your animals and all your hides like it's early season. Get it off that animal as soon as you can. But also just know that, keep in mind you got a little bit more time in the fall whenever it's colder, because it's not going to want to slip those hair follicles. But it is very important to take care of the hide, because if you have any intentions about doing a shoulder mount, you gotta take care of that hide.
Yeah, well, and the meat too, the longer it sits in the heat, the more chance it gets of going bad, or, getting a bad taste to it. And it's just, you don't want to age it while it's sitting in the animal. That's not the proper way to age meat.
You don't want to age it that way, that's for sure. Yeah.
No, that's definitely not the way to do it. But I know that there's a lot of people who get out there and it's like, I'd like to have this mounted, and then they don't take care of it right, and then next thing you know, like you said, you have to, you need to shoot another deer. You need to get me the cape right away because I can't use this one. Or you're going to, like a European mount where there's just skull and antlers.
Yep.
Because you don't have a cape, you can't do anything with it. And
there's places that I've found since doing taxidermy, and there's pages that you can buy replacement capes and stuff like that. But boy, they don't give those things away for free. Behooves you to take care of that cape prior to, wanting to do something, because all you got is, if you're lucky, you can get away with having it caped off and someone will waive that fee, and then you just have your tanning process. But I mean, you're gonna spend $200-300 for a finished cape easily, if you end up having to ruin it. Which it's, if it's a trophy of a lifetime, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be an obstacle for someone. But at the same point, it's always, if you can. I mean, I've personally have killed animals before, and the cape in Texas wasn't any good whenever I got it, because sometimes in the extreme heat, like whenever I go hunt axis, I'll be doing that at the end of June. The extreme heat can cause heat rashes, and their hide and their fur's slipping on their own, and then you get a wonky hide, and then you ultimately have to get a replacement cape, and it had nothing to do with what you did out there. I guess the other thing is just you want to make sure that you are pulling, and if you're having to drag the animal, you drag it from the antlers, not from the feet, because that's going to actually keep the hide laid down the correct way, and you're
Right.
basically going back against the grain, and you won't have as many areas that would potentially rub if you're dragging it. Don't drag it if you want to get it mounted, but if you had to, just one person, I would do that. I would also take a tarp or something and put underneath it, have that with you, and ahead of time, if you know you're going to be one person, you can then wrap that around the animal and drag it out with the tarp. Make it a heck of a lot easier for you to drag out, one, but also you're protecting that cape too. So those are all just little techniques and stuff that I've learned just through taxidermy, as well as just hunting in general. So
Right. Yeah. And then the carts are nice too. They've got some, I've got a cart that actually folds up in a backpack. So you get one, you hike out and you get your cart and pull it out. And, if you're a long ways away, that's a bit of a walk, but it's better than dragging them. I've dragged my share of them, and, me and the hunting buddy, we, each grab an antler and go, or a leg and go, or, we tie a rope to it and, pull it that way. And, but we don't mount a lot of them because, unless it's a really nice trophy one,
sure.
Why? That's most time you're not going to mount a doe because it's good. And then you can still save the capes, then you have the cape that you can do other things with it. You can have them tanned and made into gloves and all kinds of stuff. So, there's no reason to just throw the hide away.
They make really cool throw pillows for couches and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
They're pretty comfortable, but yeah, that reminds me of actually not a cart or a tarp or anything like that, but still probably to this date, my favorite personal hunt that I've done just with myself, not any of the other stuff that I've filmed, because I filmed a lot of other things where, for nonprofits and taking children and veterans out, stuff like that. And it's still very gratifying experience of what took place and what they accomplished. But a personal accomplishment of my own reminds me of kind of what we're talking about right here, is protecting and taking care of that cape. I want to say it'll be this fall, be 4 years now that I was on that trip, and it was at the very last weekend of archery season in Oklahoma. And that Friday before, I was in a hunt just a weekend because I was still working, and I just didn't have a lot of days left of the year to be able to do anything. We had tornadoes that were popping up. We had rain. We had freezing rain. There was snow, all in this one storm. It was weird, and the temperature dropped. It was the craziest thing ever. I didn't even know if I was going to make it. It's only a 2-hour drive from here, but the place that I was going to go, I was actually going to, we had to cross a low, water creek, and a low crossing creek, and then drive like, I don't know, I guess it's about a mile in there, and then walk about 500 yards to get to where I was going to hunt. Well, that night, they got so much rain that it came up almost 4 feet. So there was no way for me to be able to get across that creek. And when we woke up the next morning, not only did it rained overnight, but then it went to freezing rain, and then we got 8 inches of snow. So, and it was like 16, 18 degrees in the morning. So it was like a total flop of what our plan was. And thank God I packed really cold gear, because I would have, it would never have happened. I wouldn't have make it all day. But my buddy had a canoe, and I was dead set on hunting this one spot because I knew it was going to be dynamite. They were going to be freezing their butts off. He had, food out there for them already the late season. So I knew they were starving from the rut. It was just going to be as good of a potential of a slam dunk in my eyes as possible for a trip. I was like, I am not going to be denied to go hunt this specific ladder stand. So I took a canoe across, paddled across. I documented all this with my cameras for my shows, one of the last years that we were doing stuff. And I had a hike in a mile in the snow. I actually had jeans on, and I was going in with like a short sleeve t-shirt. Very cold outside, but I did not want to sweat going in with all that equipment because I knew I had a long walk. So then I closed up at the base of the tree and got situated, I don't know, probably around 11 o'clock, and I hunted the entire day. And I saw a bunch of deer, a bunch of bucks that were half racks. That was the gamble, that I was hoping I'm still going to get one that was, and still holding both sides. And right at golden hour, the sun was crisp, peeking through. It was just beautiful. A really, really nice wide 8-point came out, and I'm a sucker for big 8s. And anyways, 25 yards, I let him have it. He ran 70 yards, but he's at this point, I'm a mile in. I have the only way to get across this creek because I have the canoe on my side, so I have no help. So I knew I needed to do something. The first thing I did was I went ahead and caped out my animal, and because I knew I'm going to do a mount for it, and I caped it out a certain way. At the time, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to pack this thing out, and I had brought my Western pack with me just in case I had to do that, And so I haven't finished this mountain yet, just because I've been having to do everyone else's first. But it is going to be a true backpack mount that you see a lot of people do a lot of the stuff. I'm doing a lot of different things with it, but I had to quarter up this deer. I caped him out, got the head and everything in there, packed as much meat as I could in the pack, and then actually had some cord, and because it was snow, I wrapped everything else up in excess cape to keep the meat protected. I only cleaned what I needed to clean and kept everything else on skin that I knew I could drag, because it was going to be on the snow. As long as I kept on top of the snow, it was going to stay relatively clean. And that was the longest 3 hours it ever took me to get back to that canoe, just for 1 mile. But I got it all there. You got it loaded up and across the canoe, and heck, it probably was 2 o'clock in the morning by the time it felt. I don't think it was that late, but it sure did feel like it after that workout. But it was just kind of a cool story, because we were talking about tarps and you were talking about carts, and backpacking out is another way. But if you take and you roll up that cape and protect it and keep it in your backpack like that, it'll it'll be fine for a mount as well. So that was quite the experience. I don't think I'll ever top that again. I don't know that I could even do that again, not right now. So I was in a lot better shape.
Yeah, that you got to be in pretty good shape to do that much work. I'm normally not that far back, when I go, so I don't have those long ones anymore. But there's times when you go out, it's nice if you go walking back a ways, because most people don't want to go those long distances, and you get to go back where you don't have a lot of traffic. If you hunt real close, then you have a lot of people going. And I've got a place here we're going to check out for next year. It's a public place, but where I think they're all hanging out, you probably got about a mile walk, because you can't drive there. You could, but it's a public area. This is no driving back there, so you don't want to get caught driving back there. And where you're supposed to park is probably 4 or 5 blocks just to get up to where you can go into it. And so it's a little bit of a walk, but
It's
if
usually
that's where they're at, you got to go.
That's where you got to do, is you got to do put the extra mile in, literally in my case. But it was awesome. if I had the opportunity to do that again, 100%, because at that time I had never shot uh, any animal with archery with a bow in the snow. And I had never gotten a chance to go do a canoeing with the equipment, and then the chance of coming back with an animal, and then having to hike in that far. And it was just, and I knew I was going to film it, as an episode, which I'll share the link with you. And if any of you guys want to actually watch it, I think I recapped it pretty good just now, but yeah, it was a once in a lifetime thing, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So I'm actually going to um, way northern Alaska a year from this August, the very end of August, in 2024 for caribou hunt with 4 of my buddies, and it'll probably be like a 2-week thing. We're gonna fly in. There's a cabin that we'll go to, and we got to drive like 8 hours north to get to the boat that's gonna drive up 50 miles up this river. I don't even know where it is. I just found out this week, so I'm super excited about it. But we're going all the way up there, and we'll hunt until, hopefully we're all successful. We'll have each of our own personal rafts to put all of our gear and our meat and everything back in, and then we'll float down the 50 miles, meet up with the truck, and then head back. So we got 2 weeks blocked off for this. So I'm excited for that. So that's that experience will probably top this this one I shared, just because truly, like I'm going to the last frontier, and I've always wanted to do that. It'd be a lot of fun. So
That's an archery hunt then?
I was hoping it was going to be an archery hunt, but they just want everyone to bring rifles on this trip. So just because of how we'll have no guide or anything. So I guess they want to make it as easy as possible for us. So that's what they decided. And they had a 4th person that was supposed to be going, and then he couldn't make it with his schedule. So they asked me, and I didn't even ask my wife. I just said, I'm going. So I'll ask for forgiveness afterwards. So we just had that conversation. So she's like, oh, okay, you just got back from Africa, and I haven't been to Africa yet. And now you're going to go to Alaska before. I was like, well, I got to test these places out first to make sure they're good for compatible for you.
Right. Yeah. So does she shoot a bow as well then?
She has not shot her bow since we had the little one 2 years ago. So she's I'm looking, and I'll ask your opinion, while I'm talking to you, for a new bow for her. I got her first bow was a Matthews Jewel, and so she shot that for a couple of years. But like I said, she hasn't picked it up in a while, and she needs to really get her arm strength up a little bit more to be able to pull back. When with her having a 24-inch draw, she's needs to have a little bit more poundage behind it so that she can.
Yeah.
I won't let her shoot more than 20 yards, just because I don't want her to, get herself in a situation that she's still new to the sport, so.
Yeah, there's some of the new bows, that you can adjust them, as you adjust the draw length, the max weight goes up as well. So you can go, the real low draw lengths as well as light poundage, and then by the time you go up to the 70 pounds, you're shooting at your 28, 29-inch draw length. But her with a 24-inch draw length, you're going to be somewhat limited on, some of those bows, because as the draw length increases, your max weight goes up. So there's a lot of them out there. They're just, every year they come out with new bows, and they're so efficient, and you get some good speed out of them. And I always tell people, we talked about this in the last podcast, that if you can't draw back slowly, you're shooting too much weight. And it's like, well, I'm gonna shoot more weight. It's like, well, can you draw back slowly? Well, no, they kind of make all this motion. It's just, okay, now you have this deer, it's out there, it's not looking at you, but it can almost see you move. So can you draw back slow enough that deer can't see you? Well, no, then it's too much weight.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is she's got to really she needs to work on some exercises to strengthen herself, because I don't even remember what it said to. I don't think it's even at 40, and she's all over places like Patty, like, babe, like we just, you can't hunt like that. You can shoot the yard, but it shouldn't be that difficult.
Right. Well, and one of the things too, a lot of people will try and draw them back using their chest muscles or their
Yep.
arms, and that is absolutely the hardest way to draw a bow. You got to use your back muscles. So when you draw back, you actually just squeeze your back muscles together, and it pulls the hand back. You're not pulling with your arms and your shoulders, because that isn't the efficient way to do it. Use your back muscles and pull. I've had my elbow so sore. I did martial arts for quite a while, and you bang on it a few times, and next thing you know, your elbow's sore. And I couldn't hardly grip anything or pull anything, but I had a wrist strap. I could draw my 70-pound bow, but yet I couldn't pick up 10 pounds, because it hurt, because I'm not using my arm to do it. I'm using the back. And that might be something that'll help her out when she gets back, is to, change her technique a little bit, crank the weight down so she can do it and just keep shooting and shooting. I know when I first started, my bow was set at 52 pounds. I killed my first deer at 52 pounds with a great big, I think I had 145 grain broadhead on it. That back when they had aluminum arrows, they didn't have carbons now, like they do now. And it was a full length, like 2117, 52 pounds, 40 yards away, 20 feet up in the tree. And that arrow almost went clean through. And, working my way up, it took forever before I could finally get to 60 pounds. I'd do a little bit here, a little bit here. And then, once you get up above 60, then 62, and then next thing you know, then it just went to 70. But until then, it was a lot of work getting it to that point, and a lot of shooting. And, then I wasn't shooting correct form, because before I knew how to shoot, better form and better technique. And, there you're just kind of pulling it back, like you do when you don't know what you're doing. And so that might be something too, when she gets ready, just getting somebody that can help her with her form. And,
Yep.
and that's one of the things that I do in the group, as well as I also do it online, is, help with shooting form. One of the things in the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group, take a video of your shooting, upload it to the group, and we'll give you some ideas on what to do to fix it. There's, no matter what you're doing, there's something we can fix. If you're open to be open to be coachable, you're going to learn something. If you have that idea that's like, no, I know best, it's like, I'm not going to help you, because I'm wasting my time and you're not going to learn anything. But, those that are open want to learn, they're going to get some information out of it. And, that's just one of the things that, we do in that group, is to, help archers out with improving their forms and, your bow setup. I became an arch instructor in 95, and I become a bow tech. I had my own store in 2001 and went down to, I was a PSE dealer. I went down to PSE, spent a week down there at their school, learning how to tear bows apart from, here's a bow, tear it down. No two pieces can be connected together. So the axles are out, the cams are out, the limbs are out, all the bolts are out. And it was just parts, and we had to build them all back up, and then learn how to reserve them, and, how to make the steel cables. Back then they had steel cables on them. The old PSE Nova had round plastic wheels with steel cables on them, and how to make those. That's an art that you're not going to find anybody doing nowadays. For one, it might be impossible to find the right type of steel cable, and you can't replace one, you have to replace both at a time. It's one of those, they have to be made, because you can't twist them. They have to be made to the exact length. Both have to be exactly the same. And if it's, like a half inch too long, then nothing else works right. Then you got to put, if you make them too long as they're both the same, you just have to put a shorter string on it. But then that's not the standard string for it. So it's just all, the biggest thing on those is, if you have a bow like that, cable goes long, you're just, you're better off to, just get another one.
Yeah, I started just kind of almost making a hanging my bows and just as displays, from my older stuff. And actually I've been fortunate enough to be able to grab I was able to actually get my actual first bow back that I ever
Oh,
had,
yeah.
which Pearson Quad 440, that I got my senior year, in high school. And so it's not doing anything. We're not going to hunt with it or do anything. So I just have it, on display. And then I have it's my dad's, actually it was my grandpa's old York bow, and my dad's only bow he has ever owned, and killed, I think, one or two deer with it, and that was it. He never did do a lot of archery hunting, but he got into it for a little while. That my grandpa taught him how to hunt years ago before he passed away. And so anyways, so that's really cool. I have the actual original quiver and the original aluminum arrows that my dad used with the old Thunderbolt heads on there.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so that's, I have that hanging in my shop over here. It's really cool. Just different way to display them, and always a good conversation piece.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when you have your first bow, still have it. My first bow was a Ben Pearson fiberglass recurve, 25 pounds. And I'd set it up for bow fishing. And of course, I can't even put my hand in it now because my hand was so small compared to it is now, that the bracket I had to make to put the reel on it, I can't get my hand in there. It's still got a string on it. I won't string it because the fiberglass, over the years of, started a little bit of delamination here in a couple spots. So I won't string it, but I still have it. And that was from the 60s. And I still have some wooden arrows that I had then.
Oh, that's
Back then, the tips were actually just crimped on, not glued on like some of them, the later ones. Those are just crimped on. And I remember my first fletching jig was like $1.65 I paid for my first fletching jig. I don't use it because I got a bunch of bits and burgers now, but that's the first jig that I fletched a lot of arrows with. And feathers, I was using feathers then. I'm still using feathers. One of those things that I just like feathers. I don't want to switch.
well, I'll tell you, I'm shooting something way different than what a lot of people shoot, and way different than what you're talking about. So I actually shoot the slash arrows. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Um, they're
No, I don't think I have.
it's I think it's just called slasharrows.com, and they are a game changer. I've been shooting them for about 5 or 6 years now. It's a complete arrow system. So when you buy them, you buy them for the length that you need, and then it's actually a weighted FOC outsert that is glued directly to the shaft. And the outsert on the end of it actually has inset blades inside of the actual aluminum outsert shaft. So it's about, and that offsets about 3 inches back from the fixed blade at the front of it. So it's a hybrid. The best thing I can explain it is it's a weighted FOC hybrid broadhead on the end of an arrow shaft, and it enters
Well,
as a fixed blade.
here's I brought them up for those that get to watch it. Those on the podcast are not going to be, but I went to slasharrows.com and brought them up. So those that get to watch it, here's what we're talking about.
So you can see that the front end of the actual outsert is about 4 inches long, and about 3 inches down from the front of the actual outsert from the fixed blade are 2 inset tabs. They deploy very similar to how a Swacker broadhead deploys. So
Right.
they stay protected. They do not open up in flight. I've never had any issues with that. And they do not open up on impact. They only open up once they're inside of the animal's wound cavity, because that front broadhead opens up a big enough channel so where those tabs don't catch any of the hide. They only open up on impact internally. So accuracy of a field point and penetration like a fixed blade, and then it opens up and creates a larger wound cavity inside of the animal, and then it if you get, I get majority of mine are pass throughs, but if it doesn't pass through, you're still going to have a lot of damage because you got extra blades in there. But if it passes through, then you have a exit the size of a mechanical. So they're lethal. I've been shooting them for about 6 years now. They're badass. I mean, I've killed bears, rams, hogs. Biggest whitetail I shot body wise was in Oklahoma 2 seasons ago. That was 255 live weight, and I shot it at 20 yards and it ran 10 yards and fell over and was dead in like 30 seconds. I've actually shot big bucks before, quartering away slightly to where I shot them in the back side of that pocket to where it would normally want to come out the, front of the right shoulder. And have dropped them right in their tracks. 2 of them that I've dropped right in their tracks. It has so much kinetic energy with it. It's like hitting them with a sledgehammer. It hits them hard once whenever it first impacts with the fixed blade, but then it also hits them like a second time, kind of like a concussion, whenever it deploys the mechanical blades inside the animal. It is it's so lethal, and it's just crazy how much blood that is all over the place that you can I mean, anyone could, if you're colorblind, you could see the blood, right? So
Yeah. So it looks like you put on now, are these special broadheads or just can use any broadhead?
So I'll answer that question for you. So those are the broadheads that they come with. That one right there, that is a Magnum slash arrow system, and that is a 75 grain broadhead. It's got like it's maybe a little over 3/4 in diameter, 3 or 7/8 in diameter, so it's not an inch. It's designed specifically for that, so that you don't want a really big opening, because if it gets too big of an opening, then those tabs could potentially not catch, and then you don't actually have the inset blades deploy. So you want to keep it small enough to where, big enough to where it creates a channel so that they don't open up prematurely, but not too big to where they don't ever open up at all. So, but to answer your question, yes, you could put any fixed blade you want on there. I actually shoot the Ramcats, the single blade bevel, so it's 100 grain on them. They come with those standard, and they work great. They remind me a lot of the old school Muzzy design. I've killed a lot of animals with them, but at one point our show was sponsored by Ramcat, so I needed to use one of their fixed blades, and they were okay with me using it in conjunction with this arrow setup as long as I didn't use their regular broadhead. So, and I killed a lot of 2 bears. Buddy killed a couple bears with that setup. So I've also used G5s on the end of them as well. And that like I said, it's really pretty awesome to be able to do that with that setup.
Yeah, that looks like you got kind of the best of both worlds. You have, the regular broadhead on there, and it looks like the same style of point the Muzzy uses, that tricord tip, and those are tough tips. I know we talked this on the last podcast. I actually stuck a Muzzy broadhead in a concrete block. It didn't hurt the broadhead. I still have, I don't know which one it is because it didn't hurt it. Yeah, the insert cracked and the shaft cracked back about an inch or so. But other than that, I cut the arrow down past the bad spot, and let my kid use it, and it's too short for me, and he was just like 8, 9 years old, so he didn't have a lot of weight. But yeah, that tip, when it hits anything hard like a bone, is definitely gonna go through it like the Muzzies do. And that looks like a decent one. So you said a 75 grain tip, but then you had the other part. So is it more like an equivalent 100 grain tip or 125 or something?
Basically, I think it's between 125 and 150 on the front end. So you have a heavier, FOC for sure. I want to say maybe with the 75 grain, I haven't weighed it with the hundreds, but I want to say they advertise it's like around 12 or 13 grains per inch overall with the entire system, put on there. So but yeah, they're uh, I don't use anything else. I got rid of everything else about 4 or 5 years ago, and I haven't looked back. So
Well, you're having real good results with it, so why not? And that's another reason why I like get on everybody, because everybody has different equipment, and what's working and what's not working, what's new. Um, I'm kind of still old school. I'm still using the broadheads I bought. My first broadhead was a Muzzy broadhead. I went from 4 blade to 3 blade, and I'm still using them. I had good luck with them, so
there's nothing
my
wrong
bow's
with
set up to shoot them, and I'm just staying with what's working. I'm not one of those that like to have a new bow every year or every other year. Now, if I was on a pro staff for a bow, then every other year at least you're getting a new bow, because that's why you get them so cheap, is because you can do that. I know I
sure.
had my when I had my store, I had some staff shooters, and every other year they were expected to have a new bow, and they actually got them cheaper than I could buy them wholesale. My cost, they got them cheaper, and then the idea was, with the staff shooter, is they buy their bow 2 years later, they sell their bow for as much, if not more, than what it costs to get them their new bow. So after, you know, 3 or 4 years, they're shooting free bows because they can sell off their old one. And
Exactly.
so it's good for the shooter, but you're out there promoting your store and promoting, the products. And I know my shooters that, the one guy who's constantly bringing in, customers for having their bows super tuned, and that, well, a lot of people don't realize is there's actually 3 axes for setting up a site. Everybody knows, the up and down, the elevation and windage. But what a lot of people don't realize is, as you tilt that bow down, is it still level? As you tilt it up, it's still level. So it might be okay. As soon as you start bending down, now your level's off. And with the right type of jig, you put it in, or you get everything all leveled up, and you point it down. If the bubble still isn't level, then you need to shim one side. Or some sites actually have an adjustment for that third axis, so
Hmm.
that you can make sure that as you're pointing down, because if you look at your level and your bubble's off, now you're going to turn it. Well, as your pins are going straight up and down, if you have to cant your bow slightly, now then your 20-yard pin is on, and depending on which way you're canting is moving to 30, it's moving over to the right or left, depending on which way your right-hander's normally going to cant over to the right. So then as you're shooting further and further away, your pin, your bow is actually moving off to the left, because you're moving it. You're moving, instead of there, you're moving it. So now you're shooting off to the side, and that's where that being perfectly level in all 3 axes is so important. Now, a lot of the bows are set up; they're really good. A lot of the new sites, there's the quality in them. As long as you're not getting, the $30-$40 sight, if you're spending kind of decent money, most of those are good, and start getting in the high end ones, they actually have an adjustment for them. But that's something to look at too. Are you canning it as you're turning down? Are you turning down and bending over as you're doing it? What are you doing? There's all kinds of things that go on just in shooting form. And that's why it's so important to make sure your form. And those that have questions on your phone, video it, and then upload it to, a place like the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. Say, hey, uh, this is what's going on. This is what it looks like when I shoot. What am I doing wrong? And then, we'll help you. There's somebody in the group that will know what's going on, because, we've all seen different things. You've seen different things. Everybody I've interviewed seen different things, different problems. Like, oh yeah, I remember that. This is what I did, is fix it. I had that exact same problem. And it's like, I've never seen it. Let's figure it out. That's what, is so good about, everybody getting together and having such a nice group of archers from all over the world. I think last time I looked, I had, about 750 people in the group all over the world. So it's a worldwide sport. Some people know, but archer's been around for 64,000 years.
Yeah.
And it ain't going anywhere anytime soon. And it's all over the country, all over the world. You talk to an archer in a foreign country, that speaks English, or if they don't speak English, you can still kind of communicate because, hey, we have a common language, shooting a bow.
So
you can help somebody out and can't speak their language just by helping them correct what they're doing. And, it's just kind of fun. If you have a bow in your hand, another archer, another bow in her hand, you're automatically friends.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So what are you shooting these days?
I still shoot my PSE.
Okay.
My hunting bow is a 2001 PSE Carrera, and then my target bow is a 2002 or 2003, like 2003 Scorpion. And then I do have a bear that I got when I was at Cabela's, the return rejects with problems. Being a bow tech, I could fix them. I make strings, so I can make a new string for it because the string was bad and a screw was stripped out, and so I was able to fix that. And I haven't shot it, haven't set it up. I haven't put a rest on it yet, and I've had it for several years. But I shoot my PSEs.
Well, I switched. I went back to Matthews 3 years ago. I guess, well, heck, I guess it will be 3 years this fall that I've had the V3. And I haven't even entertained looking at anything. That I absolutely love that bow. I know they've come out with a couple new ones since then, but I told myself years ago, whenever I was shooting Elite, whenever I traded in my Elite Ritual 31 for the Elite, no, excuse me, Elite Impulse 31 for the Elite Ritual, that did not shoot nearly as good as that Impulse 31, that I was never ever going to get rid of a bow that I was very, very happy and comfortable with.
Yeah.
This V3 has been just lights out killer for me. And I have one of those Garmin sights on there, and it's just like, man, it's just so easy. And taking the step of having to worry about, I still pre-range everything every time I get in, so I didn't have my markers and general ideas.
Right.
But to be able to not have to let back down and draw again and range and then draw again, it takes that one extra step out, and I think it's been helped dividends for me, be able to do that. I'm all about eliminating extra steps if I can,
Right.
That's one less thing that could bust me up. So like for me, I started practicing always shooting sitting in my bow stand, and the only time I ever get up to shoot to stand up is if I have to, if they're behind me or something like that. That would be the only time, which then you can get away with getting up right then and sneaking around, because usually you can use the tree to help block your movement. But I got into the habit. I was like, well, that's one less thing. Even if they don't, or that deer doesn't see me, what about the other spike that's been curious the whole hunt? I got to watch for him. So as long as I don't have to, stand up, I can. That's what I always practice. I practice sitting down in my yard, if I don't have a setup with a tree stand in the yard, practicing at shooting angles and stuff like that. But I just practice a lot of times shooting from my knees or shooting sitting down. This is where I got used to it, because there's a lot of instances where if I'm traveling and stuff like that, we have to hunt out a pop-up line. So I made that crucial mistake years ago. I was in Kentucky, and it would have still been my biggest 8-point to this day. And I want to say it was about 30 yards. And I was on a chair that my buddy had that was way too high for this double bull ground blind, which those windows are really low to the ground,
Right.
lower than that one. I'd want them a little bit higher. Well, on top of that, I'm looking up an incline, so the blind's like this. So if you're sitting in a chair, you can barely even see anything out the window. So I had to get down on the ground, and I was not used to doing that position. And so I was super rock solid and comfortable. But the problem was is that I was not in my core, and I didn't realize it. And I did exactly what you were talking about, where you thought you were good, but my body and everything was goofy, and I shot way to the left, and I, I couldn't believe that I whiffed. I was like, there's no way. I wasn't shaky. I don't get shaky. I get shaky afterwards. Like that's where I keep my cool and composed. And afterwards, that's whenever I'll freak out, And usually I was telling, I'm gonna wait to make sure that the animal's completely gone, or I'll watch it fall right there before I make a sound, because a lot of people get too excited and then you'll spook the animal, and it may just have fallen down and passed right there in front of you if you had just kept quiet. But anyways, unfortunately, the groundhog that decided to come out about 15 minutes later after that ended up being my target to test the bow wasn't set up, wasn't messed up, and it wasn't. I smoked him. So whenever I went back and broke down the film and realized what had happened, it's just that my core and everything was torqued. And it just caused me to do just like what you were saying about, if you're trying to do something like that and you think you're good, and then before you know it, you're shooting way low or way to the right, way to the left. And I learned from that mistake. I practiced a lot out of ground blinds and sitting, and then the following year I shot a really nice buck in Nebraska from a ground blind. And just, it's so easy to forget going through the fundamentals when you're in the moment, but
Right.
you only have a few that you need to pay attention to, and make sure you don't skip those. You still need to go through your checklist before you shoot, just because if you don't, it might bite you.
Right. Yeah. So whereabouts in Nebraska did you hunt?
In kind of north central and Burwell, Nebraska. So it's
Okay.
right close to was it the Platte River? Is that what they call it in Nebraska?
Yeah.
Not very far from there, really close to the Sandhills. I got a buddy that does a lot of outfitting out over there, and he does a lot of mule deer and whitetail and turkeys and stuff like that. And that hunt in particular, I was actually hunting for whitetail, but yeah, we had a lot of fun with my buddy Cody over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Burwell. Let's see. Yeah, because I'm in Ithaca, Nebraska, which you're right above Kearney.
Yep, right over Kearney.
Yeah, right straight above Kearney, between Kearney and the South Dakota border.
Yep.
That's out there. There's a lot of land out there.
Yeah, it's a special place. I haven't been able to be over there in a couple seasons now. The last time I went was I took my wife out there to go on an archery hunt, and we did our gender reveal in the blind to find out that we were having our baby boy.
Oh, cool.
What I did was I got some of those orange scent checkers.
Oh yeah.
That you squeeze the powder out, and I filled one with pink powder and one with blue powder, and made sure they were completely cleaned up, and then gave them to my buddy to where we could not tell which one it was. We had the doctor email him the results of what we were having, and so then he gave me that thing, and so we filmed it, and while we were checking the wind, we squirted it, and then the blue powder came up, and we were super excited. We didn't see anything else the rest of the hunt because we were so excited, but the next morning she got her opportunity. But unfortunately, the buck we were after, he came out with a doe right before good shooting light early in the morning, checking her, and we never did get an opportunity after that. So it's just how it goes. He was slick. I mean, that deer was about 160-inch 8 point. He was a monster. I keep saying eights, but I target a lot of times. A lot of people don't like shooting eights, but I'm like, man, just put me on the big eights. I don't care what they score. They're just so cool. A lot of times they're big, symmetrical, especially you get some of the older ones, they just get really heavy and nasty. So, but unfortunately it didn't work out. If we had a little bit more light and he had hung out a little bit longer, I had the Raven set up for her and she was doing really well practicing with that. Because at that point, she was several months pregnant, so she wasn't going to be able to bow hunt traditionally. But I wish it would worked out. So
Yeah, you never know. That's what, pretty much, a lot of episodes, archery is a stick with a string flinging another stick.
yeah,
And crossbows fit in that category. And if that's what you need to
Yeah.
use or want to use, just because you want to use it, hey, that's fine. I know when I had my store, if you shot a crossbow, we need to put a different target up because it'd get buried too far into the backstop
oh yeah,
and you'd lose your bolt. So you needed one specifically for crossbows. So, hey, go for it. You just can't shoot it in a regular backstop because it won't stop them. Wasn't
oh yeah,
rated for it.
yeah,
And, the one thing you could not shoot is a broadhead, ever shoot a broadhead into my
yeah.
target. I had a big old sign up, it's a big old fine if you shoot a broadhead. It's you just, a lot of people shoot them into blocks and stuff, and you see big hunks coming out, and they're not designed for them. And when you have layered foam, you can take lots and lots of shots, with a field tip before you beat it up. It don't take but just a couple dozen shots in the broadhead, you got hunks coming out.
Oh
And
yeah.
every time you go, you slice through those layers, and next one takes out a hunk, and next thing you know, they're all gone. And I didn't have any trouble with anybody shooting broadheads in there because I kind of watched it and big old sign. It's like no broadheads. $500 fine if you're shooting a broadhead because it's going to cost me that to fix the backstop.
Exactly. Yep. I reckon that puts a little bit of fear of God in them. So
Yeah,
that's actually
and
pretty clever because a lot of times people post no, don't shoot broadheads, or broadheads are not allowed, but they're not showing that this is going to be a monetary fine of this amount if you do
right,
that. That was a big deterrent. People see that like,
yeah.
oh, it ain't worth $500.
No, I don't know if that's what the price was, but it was now it'd be $500 because what's
Sure.
going to take to replace a backstop, and especially get those
At
4 foot
least.
square ones. And mine was a little bit different. I had foam that I was able to get, rolls of foam, and I cut them out into 4 foot sections, and then I banded them together, and that's what I made my backstop out of. I still got one left, but I ended up getting rid of the other two. I had 3 of them in there, and you can get 4 targets on each one. 2 up and 2 down, and
It makes some really good
but,
ones out there. That's for sure.
now it's I just buy one of those blocks, those 4 foot square blocks, and I've seen a lot of ranges use the smaller ones and just stack them. That way if you wear out one, it's easier to replace one than it is a great big one. And I've got a couple of those. I got a broadhead target, so I can shoot into broadheads into it, and they're a little bit, they're a solid foam instead of being layered foam.
Sure.
But now, speaking of shooting your broadheads on those slash arrows, do you practice with them, or do you have any way you can practice to see how they're flying? Or
Yeah, so there's it comes with a practice arrow and 2 hunting arrows. So the hunting arrows have the actual inset blades and the tabs and everything like that. The practice arrow is just a straight weighted, the exact same amount of the outsert on the end of the arrow, and then you just put your field point on the end of it. And I've never had any issues just practicing with them and then being able to transfer the same flight results into the field. So I've been satisfied. I will say, going with the Magnum over the Express, it's a heavier overall grain per inch, and so you get beyond 40 yards and then you'll start seeing that it's really going to drop off gap wise on your sights from 40 to 50, just because it's so heavy. You're lobbing it at that point. And I quit taking more than 40-yard shots on deer years ago, just because they will jump the string on you so fast, you have to almost anticipate it and shoot low on purpose, and if they don't, then well, the good thing is you flat out miss them, but that's still better feeling to flat out know you missed an animal than to wound an animal, that's for sure.
Right.
But yeah, the express are a little bit lighter, so they have a further distance. I've shot them a little bit, but my buddies that shot them with me on the show, they just use the express, and they like shooting longer distances and stuff like that. And so that's what they shot. So they shoot a little faster, shoot a little flatter, and a little longer, a little further, excuse me. But yeah, I like the Magnums just because there's always bows these days, they're so fast. You can shoot speed bows, and there's always going to be the fastest one on the market at the time. But compared to what they were years ago and what they are now, they're all night and day faster, right? So I want to maximize my kinetic energy transfer over how fast my actual feet per second flight is, because it goes a lot back to how the old aluminum arrows were. The reason why they had so much pass through is not because they were going fast, because they weren't. There's just so much kinetic energy behind them, it's just going to force it through, as long as you're not hitting anything that stops it on a drastic impact. And I always kind of compared a speed bow, a speed setup, an arrow setup to a kinetic setup, kind of like shooting a low caliber rifle, compare a 223 or something like that, low caliber precision rifle that would be accurate, which will get the job done with a deer, but you just don't have any knockdown behind it. The only thing you're relying on is your accuracy and nothing else going wrong, and having zero forgiveness. If you put a really good shot and perfect shot placement, and you know how to drop an animal and break them down, you don't have to worry about a blood trail, right? Because you can drop it right there. But seeing that hunting is 95% or more imperfect all the time,
Right.
I would always choose something that's more forgiving than something that is a calculated thing that would be a perfect setup for long distance or just target practicing. And so that's why I've gone with the Magnums, because even if your shot is not quite where you want it, you can rely on that extra knockdown power, with that extra kinetic energy. Is just, it's like, you're almost like, ooh, every time you hear it hit an animal, because you're like, gosh dang, I smacked the crap out of him, because it's hitting so hard whenever you're using that. You're like, oh, I know it. I know that I did something to, make sure I did my part to give that animal as swift as death as possible, just it's impressive, is the best way I can explain what those arrows have done over the years for me. So still got to shoot, still got to do all the techniques, but to be able to have that amount of forgiveness in an arrow system like that, because it's really an arrow system the way it's all tuned, right? So it's unreal. So it really is.
Yeah, and you can resharpen the blades on the front head, so you can go ahead and shoot those into your broadhead target. Don't have to worry about the mechanicals opening up, and once they do that, then going into a target, they could bend and stuff like that, and then they don't, they may not close right. So yeah, having one, you can just put the broadhead on there and shoot it and see how it goes, and then just take the mixed arrow and switch that dull one over, and That's what I do when I'm setting mine up is I've got some dull blades. I put those in and shoot my arrows. Then I pull the tip off and put in the sharp blades, for hunting. And,
Yep.
I've got some, they come with practice blades, back when I get in the muzzies. But I have enough of the dull blades that, I didn't sharpen that,
Sure.
I just keep those in and shoot those and, then I know how the arrow's flying. And now you have confidence that it hits where you're going to shoot it. And like here in Nebraska, we don't generally have very long shots unless you're going out mule deer out in western Nebraska. Now there you'll have longer ones, but most of them around here in the eastern part, if you're in a forest, getting 20-yard shot is a challenge to get that far away.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, I believe it. I hunted, like I said, over there in Nebraska, and they hunt it with their bows for mule deer, and they both got one. And that's the reason why they decided they want to go with the Express. And at the time, I was so gung ho into whitetail and not even concerned about mule deer at the time that I was like, well, I don't need to worry about shooting beyond 40 yards because I got it dialed in for what I want to do for a whitetail. And so they had their dialed in for 60, 70 yards with the Express, and so that's, if you're going to do that type of hunting, you definitely want to go with the Express, but there's no reason why you can't use the Express for whitetail either. It's just all about your preference, of what you want. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. It's we everyone that has the ability to archery hunt, we all have it pretty good, pretty blessed, because it's not everyone can do it, not
No.
everyone has time, no, not everyone has had the instruction and the experience. And I know a lot of friends of my own that they don't know the first thing about a bow, and it's amazing that you can I've had more success bow hunting than I have firearms hunting. Not that I haven't had a lot of excessive success over the years with rifle, but in my opinion, to know that I can take anything down that I want with just a string and an arrow, and not have to have a firearm to do it, is a good feeling, knowing that if something ever happened and you didn't have a firearm, you could still pull up a bow and put something on the table for food,
Right.
So just, there's so many different ways that you can do things and provide. And it's just another thing that I can offer my family. and
Yeah.
another excuse to buy more toys. So
Yeah, that's the reason, right? That's the main reason.
yeah. So
Well, and the meat's not loaded full of hormones and antibiotics and all these other chemicals they put in them. They're not genetically modified, and it's just pure meat.
yeah, or what they like saying is it's organic.
Yeah, organic. Gets much more organic than wild animals.
That's right. That's right. So, but yeah, I don't want to get too political because that get me fired up. But I still don't understand how a fair chase animal, they got a problem with that, but they can eat a Big Mac or eat something processed, or they're nothing but just farms. Those animals don't even have a chance to get away.
Right.
But
It's we could go off another whole tangent just going on
yeah,
that, because
yep,
I think we have the same viewpoint here, but
yep.
we won't go there yet.
Well,
Maybe we'll have another podcast that's just about political stuff, but right now we're we're not going there yet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm probably gonna have to run here soon. I'm looking at the time. Looks like we're just a little over an hour.
Yeah.
Um, I need to get back into getting this mount before I gotta start doing all my other honeydew showers stuff.
Yeah.
And like pick up the little one at daycare. So he's
Eh,
he's getting fascinated with my truck as a lifted truck. And so now he wants daddy to pick him up at daycare because he's wants to get in my truck. He says, I want
Oh,
the truck. So
hey, why not, right?
exactly. So yeah, shoot, it gives me an opportunity to give the wife a little bit of a break. So
Yeah.
I'm all for doing that for her. So
Well, what would you say to our audience as a parting thought?
um I would say don't ever take your time out in the wilderness and outdoors for granted. I mean, kind of back to what I was talking about, how we should be blessed just to be able to have the ability to shoot archery equipment. There's a lot of people out there that don't get to experience the outdoors as a hobby or even really get to experience it at all. They're very consumed with city life or they're unfortunately in a poverty situation where they can't experience the things that we have as a privilege, not a right, to be able to do. And I just got back from Africa about a month ago, and to see how much we have it so much better here than there. A beautiful place. Everyone was so thankful, always a smile, even on their small, tiny 10 by 10 homes made out of, dilapidated mortar and bricks, no electricity, and just wanting to help, just like killed me. I didn't want to empty my pockets. And, being there just in the outdoors and experiencing that is the whole world. There's a whole big wide world, us here in America, unfortunately, we're spoiled. That's all there is to it. And sometimes you need to have wake up calls. And one of my things is just when I was there, I realized that anytime you get a chance to be in the outdoors, just soak it up because it's going away. We have people that are constantly against things that we do and love to do, and there's never going to be there's not any more land. It's going away. It's being harvested for farmland or forestry or new developments, and it's just an unfortunate thing. And so we got to take care of it, and we need to also enjoy it and respect it too. So
Yeah, that's some good points, and we just got to enjoy it when we're there, and I'm getting ready to go out do some mowing outside, so I'm gonna be spending the rest of the afternoon outside and enjoying the nice weather we're having here in Nebraska right now. It's fairly nice. A few more months and it's going to be really hot, and then a few more months later it's going to be really cold.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's either hot or cold, never in between, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we just experienced starting to get hot all of a sudden because a little over a week ago it was 30 degrees, and then on Monday it was or Sunday it was 90. Like whoa, but we're ready for the warm weather, for sure. But just in a short period of dose because I like the seasons, right? Warm weather usually is when you're going turkey hunting, when you're going doing some swimming, going the river, always fishing. And cold weather for me, it's football's time of the year and hunting,
Right.
and an excuse to cuddle with your wife because it's cold.
Yeah.
So, but well, yeah, man, we should do this again sometime. This is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I enjoy this. I can do this a long time, but we have to kind of cut them down a little bit. But yeah, it's been great having you on. I'm sure we'll do this again in the future, and it's just been a lot of fun talking to you. I learn something every time I do one of these from whoever I'm talking to, and hopefully our listeners are listening and are watching and learning from it as well. And we're here to help. If you have any questions, like I said before, the only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. Because once you ask it, it's not a stupid question. Now, if you ask it 20 or 30 times, yeah, there's something wrong here. Either you're not getting it, or we need to answer it differently. But
Or you're a 2-year-old.
oh yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
Because every once in a while, my little boy will ask me the same thing over and over again. I'm like, Jonathan, I've answered that like 5 times now. And then he's just looking at me, waiting for me to give me a little smirk. I'm like, okay, you're just doing it on purpose now. And he starts
Yeah.
giggling.
Or,
But
or searching for a different answer.
yeah. But exactly what you said, you know, the worst type of question is not the question that is a question you didn't ask, and I always grew up always wanting to know why. That's what I always would ask. Well, what, my parents, well, why do you need to know why? I was like, because I want to learn, and
Yeah.
that's just how I've always wanted. The only way you can learn is if you ask questions. So
Well, and lots of times when I'm teaching, I'm teaching them how to do it, but I also tell them why I'm teaching it that way. So they understand why we're doing it this way. Then they can understand why they need to do it this way, and sometimes understand how to do it. Once you know why I do it the way I do, not just because that's the way I do it, it's just that's what I've learned,
sure,
from all my experiences, that this works best for me, and we may have to tweak it for somebody else. And I'm always open to tweaking stuff for somebody else, and somebody else has a different idea. Hey, let's try it and see how well it works.
that's right.
But
That's
but
right.
yeah, great having you on. We probably go ahead and end this. My name is Roy Canterbury, and I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101. And we'll see you in the next one. We'll have one out, podcast come out twice a week, and you always get them as soon as they go in the group. So if you're not in the group, join the group, and you can get these live and communicate with us as we go, ask questions, and go from there. So we'll see everybody on the next one.